got your floor book, one of the things that we need to do is to set it up. And to help you do that, what we've done is to create some download sheets with labels on that will allow you to frame the inside of your floor book to make sure that you've got all those key features in there. So this is the empty floor book, remember, and this is the floor book that we'll have a look at a little bit later on, which is completed. We know about that front cover, and you can see from the one beside me that children have decorated that towards the end of their project. Let's look at some of the labels. So the first one that I suggest that people look at is the one that goes on the inside front cover actually, and that's called the starting point. For me, it's really important that we understand what was the generator for this project or inquiry. What was the fascination that you saw from children? Or was it in actual fact a fascination that the adult has brought to the learning environment because they've perceived there to be a need? That starting point has got a direct connection often with engagement. The closer that starting point is to children and their fascinations, the more effective the whole process will be during the inquiry. The first page is about signing in, and that means that those children are the authors of this whole book. So anybody that's going to be involved in contributing something to that generation of knowledge or the development of skill or the development of a concept and understandings signs in here. So that means that we've got children's mark making, but we've also got parents and carers. We would have the team, the adult staff team. You might also have visiting specialists. So at the end, you have a collective community of practice of people who've been engaged in that long learning journey. Then we start into the floor book, and that's when you start to then put in your photographs, you put in children's drawings, you put in conversations. So this is your documentation process. Remember, you're not putting everything in a floor book, you're making selections of key and significant facets. To make that really effective, one of the things that we've been supporting people to do is to be the adult who is the reflective practitioner. You as the adult have an incredible impact on what children do, so it's important that part of the documentation also involves adult reflection. Adult reflection is about the adult having a space where they sit down on their own or with colleagues to have that dialogic debate. So in there it's about what happened, what was going on, and what were you doing in order to facilitate that. We could also rename this and call it adult reflexivity if you want to go to the next stage, because reflexivity is purely focused on what the adult themselves are doing in order to affect the children's environment, whereas reflection is often more focused on the experience. Now, for this to be a floor book, you have to analyse the learning, and so we've given a whole number of little plods, and those plods have the word plod written at the very top of the sheet, and they would be cut up, put it probably into an envelope at the front of the floor book or into your workbox, so that as you're analysing children's drawing and writing, you would put your little sticker at the bottom here that says plod. When you write plod, possible line of development, it means that you phrase it, do this in order to learn this. So offer some hammering tools in order to look at the effect of chlorophyll in leaves or something like that. So you always talk about what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, and those would be scattered throughout the floor book. And then the bit that's important really is about looking at this in terms of accountability. So the two back pages are really important. The right hand page is going to be what you call the learning pathway. Some people have renamed that the learning tracks, but it's the same thing. The learning pathway is about looking at all of those different lines of inquiry that children engaged in during the process of the inquiry. So you might start off with a central focus, so it might be ice or changes, and then out of that you'll see the lines of inquiry coming as they've either emerged from children or as adults have introduced them. And then all those little plods that you wrote through your floor book, you transfer when you've done them into this big map, this two-dimensional map of the learning pathway. That's enough in itself in many countries, but in this country, one of the things we have to do is show our accountability to curriculum. So on the very back sheet is where we would print out the copies of our experiences and outcomes from our curriculum documents. They would be stuck here onto the back cover, and then as you're looking at this, you're actually saying, within this floor book, I have evidence that a child has done this, and this. So you would write on there a page number or a date to help people assess what it is that you've actually been showing through your floor book. So that's it, set up and ready to go. So that now would go to one side, and let me just show you now in a floor book what that actually looks like. So this is our floor book, all about science and about investigations. Let's see if we can find out why it began. So here's the starting point. Let me read it. It says, the children found ice in the forest. They wanted to explore why and how it changes. This floor book will share our scientific journey to look at changes in our environment. So I'm very clear, it's got a date on it, it says January 2015. I'm incredibly clear now, as the manager of this environment, as to why this investigation began. Here's my signing in sheet. So everybody from people like Mona, who's a member of the team, through to children, mark making, other children writing more with letter shapes. So all of this is respected, and children will identify their own marks as they go through the floor book. And then, as you've seen before, lots of photographs, lots of children. Here's some analysis done by the adults in the environment. All the way through, and here more plods, and more photographs, and all of these are very rich learning moments. And then we get to the back, and here is the learning pathway, or the learning tracks. So here we can see this was all about science. I know, as somebody who is now the mentor for this space, that there's been an inquiry line into energy, perhaps into volcanoes, the soil layers, space as a place to explore, and the water changing to ice. I also know, because my team have dated this, is that there was a progression going from ice in January through to looking at fossils and things being trapped and enclosed and encased in things like ice by the time they got to March. So I can actually see the pacing of the inquiry through this mind map as well. And then over here are the curriculum outcomes. You can see that for many of them, they've been highlighted. They've been started in term 1. They may be revisited in term 2. It really allows me then, as the manager or the mentor for this team, to be able to say, where are the gaps? Is there a breadth and balance in your delivery of experiences for children? Because we all have our own personal biases, but having that curriculum at the back of your book means it isn't driving what children are doing, but it is performing its duty, which is to be a framework to help us monitor breadth and balance.